Hello, my name is Gilbert. I'm the Executive Chairman of Meridian Mining. We're developing the Cabaçal VMS copper gold project in Mato Grosso, Brazil. We've also got an IOCG exploration project in the state of Rondônia called Espigon.
Gilbert, lovely to see you. Been a while. Been a while indeed. Are you protected from the raging forest fires down in France?
They're on the other side of the country. I'm just sitting here in 32 degrees Celsius with the windows open. It's actually quite nice. We call this typical summer.
Well, there you go. Okay. You know, it's like, people ring me up to go, are you melting from 40-degree heat? And I've used the same generalizations with you. Yeah. I want to catch up. I saw the press release with regards to the Met work. I mean, you've gone early there. Why do you feel the need to do that now?
In all projects, you have to, it's all about risk. And we've always talked about this. You have to, if you have a project and you start doing out really good results, and whether it be at surface or 1,000 meters down, you've got to know what is going to be the payable metals and then when you do your metallurgical study, is there something deleterious? Is there unforeseen costs? And we knew from the historical data that we had fantastic metallurgy, even at lower grades, because we had the ramp up mill when they were feeding in 0.3 copper, 0.2 gold, which showed essentially it was producing quite high recoveries. So what we did is said, no, look, we're not here to sit around and just take in corporate costs. We're there to develop a project. And what occurred is we started drilling out the met holes. Started this year. We completed that. We sent the samples up to SGS in Lakefield. And that's a place where I've actually worked with that group before, and I know they've got a group of technicians that are world class, been doing the same job for 30 years. They took away that execution risk of the testing. But if you're going to make an investment decision on a large asset, is it going to be viable? Can they get the metal out? If they get the metal out, what's going to be the quality of the product? And today's news release has essentially set the benchmark going forward for all companies for VMS projects. I can't give an equivalent. We are now the benchmark. High recoveries, plus 90%, and a copper concentrate at 29% with half an ounce gold. I mean, this is just fantastic stuff.
Okay, and so you need to kind of work out, what you're going to be able to get out of it. So why don't you kind of run some of those numbers through with me now? Because I want to get onto the other area that's going to be important here. It's like met recovery, brilliant, but you're also going to need to get that scale side of things going. So talk about some of the recovery numbers first.
Okay, well, look, we got 94%. First thing you ought to identify is how you prepare the sample. A lot of groups, what they'll do is they'll just take the highest grade sample and hope for the high recoveries. What we did is we took a very generic sample, 0.6 copper, 0.6 gold. We took out any of the high grade gold veins because that could skew the result because it's different geology. So we're testing that for later. So we produced a representative sample, 0.6 copper, 0.6 gold. And we found out very early on that when we crushed it, just at 200 microns, we started seeing the chalcopyrite come out very quickly. So we got a very coarse grind. And then what we then found is in the cleaning circuit, just by simple addition of lime to change the pH and a partial regrind, that we were producing this amazing 29% copper concentrate. Now, what does that mean? Well, if it was pure chalcopyrite, you get 34%. We're getting 29%. So this is really some of the best met you're going to see. But most importantly in all these studies, and this really affects the CapEx, the OpEx, the stay in business capital, is our bond work index, which is how much energy you need to break the rock, came in at 11.2, and that is incredibly low. So that means we only have to crush it to 200 microns. It takes a very small amount of energy. It's very quick. I think it's some 16 minutes or so to gather the metals. And the end product is free of deleterious. We don't have any bismuth, arsenic, mercury, lead, or zinc polluting it. And we get a 29% concentrate. So that's a premium product. So if you're looking at a smelter that's buying like typical 22, 23% copper cons out of, say, Chile, or some dirty cons out of Europe or wherever, you're going to have to blend that somewhere to get optimum
smelter performance, and that's what Cabaçal is. It's a premium product.
It's a premium product, but it's out of, we've talked about this project a lot over the few months. We now at that point, especially in a market like this, really difficult market for everyone. Like, so I'm not going to pick you out, but obviously everyone's going to come off a lot. Copper prices come off, gold prices come off, doesn't kind of help. And then they kind of risk off attitude from investors more broadly. It doesn't help. You've got a bit of cash, so you've got some optionality in terms of how you move forward. So I'm asking this of lots of CEOs, which is, how do you adapt or change your attitude to what you need to say to the market and what you actually need to be doing on the ground with that capital that you've got?
Oh, that's a great question. Now, there's two ways that a CEO can respond to this, or my respect, an executive chairman. Firstly, I can batter down and just stop everything because my project's never going to be fundable, because the basic economics that I produce show that with these lower prices, it's not going to work. Or in our case, we're put out in the middle of one of the most poorest markets in recent times. The basic parameters of a mine that, regardless of the commodity price, is always going to be scenario being potentially cash flow positive. Pardon me. So we're going up to July with 4 drill crews. After start of August, we might pull back 1 drill crew, just go back to where we were. We had to accelerate the drilling because we had a loss of a couple of weeks at the start of the year with COVID. But, we are going to be a fundable project. And we have to demonstrate that. And I think today what we've demonstrated is, when you combine this with all the results we've produced to date, this is going to be a producing asset. We're not going to be mining the market for a lifestyle. We're going to go to our investors and our supporters, and we'll say, look, we've got to keep going forward. Because overriding all of this, of course, is the purchase agreement for Cabaçal, which we will, of course, honour.
But I think you can safely say that, because it's produced, 34 million pounds of copper in the past, 50,000-60,000 ounces of gold, silver, it's produced. So it should produce again. The question is, how do you talk to the market in a way that says it can produce again economically, it can produce again at scale? I mean, that's the story that we've been talking about since I've been speaking to you. So has that changed at all?
No, look, we've said this many times. If you need high commodity prices to overcome low grades or poor metallurgy, you don't have a project. Just forget about it. It's a con in the junior market. And I've said this time and time again. What we're proving today with our metallurgy, regardless of the commodity prices, this will become a producing mine, because we can see that grade, the orientation, the open pit nature, it starts at surface. High recoveries, great product. Guys, just focus on building this mine. What happened, we've seen recently, just like with G Mining, that venture capital is coming into Brazil. They just raised, I think, $480 million to build a mine. Okay, we will be able to raise money on this company. But what I'm going to do is, when we go forward, shareholders' interests are always present. They are paramount in how we go about raising money. But we've got to keep going. We are going to produce probably a really interesting resource statement come in September this year. I'll draw the attention to everyone's in this press release today. I think it's figure 2, where we can go down to like 0.2, 0.3 copper and still get plus 90% recovery. So what does that tell you? Okay, we're going to go and build a 2.5 million ton mill. This is what we can build. This is what we can finance. But the scalability of this project, without losing metal recovery, without producing a poorer product, is not going to happen. This is a really interesting project. It's an asset, and we are working to actually grow that asset value. The market's what it's market. We've seen it's been quite, I think there's been a lot of negative sentiment. But what I like about my shareholders, and they ring me up and I always respond to them, I hope my shareholders are really well educated, so they know that oh, look, we don't have to sell because we know that where this project's going to go.
Right, and that's fine for you. Your team have got a track record, right? You can put some basic numbers together, get a calculation, get a sense of whether it's going to work for you or not. I get that. But you kind of got to go through, and it's a tough market like this. We don't know how long this is going to go on for. And you said, like, either you hunker down and we get on with it, you're getting on with it. But at some point, the market's looking for a little bit of hand-holding from you, a little bit of guidance from you, and say, look, here's what you need to know about how this goes forward. Here's what you need to know about the economics. Here's what you need to know about the timing and all of that. So do you feel the need to do that? Because that seems to be most of the inbound calls from us is like, please, make us feel comfortable with what these companies are doing. And it's like, well, it's not my place. It's the CEO. So what are you doing about it?
Look, I think today's press release is to be honest, it really is a pivot in the company's project. You know that we've already got an historical resource on some 21 million tonnes. We haven't hidden behind quasi-metallurgical announcements. We've come out to the market and said, guys, look at this. We're going to produce a 29% concentrated copper. It's going to go half an ounce gold. It's going to have recoveries of 94%. We think eventually, when I do the net study on the high-grade gold, that the weighted average recovery for the gold will go above 90%. I mean, the grind is 200 microns. The bond work index is 11.2. The abrasion index is 0.28. Everything points to low capex and low opex. Now, what I will say to you, which is really quite important, everyone's concerned, we see this in France, UK, Germany's in a bad way. We could sign an offtake agreement today for about 2.5 cents a kilowatt for our power. So what we're looking at, one of your highest costs in the mining industry, we're going to have the only place I could give any comparable for cheap power is actually Quebec. So we're going to have the same sort of power scenario as operating a mine in Quebec. Uber cheap power, but combine that with some of the best metallurgy. It is without doubt the best metallurgy that I've ever observed or ever reviewed. I've never seen anything like this.
Okay, strong words. What do you do next?
What do you do next? Well, we go into our resource study. We're doing risk analysis now on going down. When we go down to the next phase of engineering and economic studies, because when you go into those studies, you want to identify your macro risks to ensure that you apply the right amount of time to address those risks, whether it be equipment sizing, mine scheduling, environmental concerns, and so forth. So we're doing that. Actually, doing that risk, we've been signed an agreement with one group just recently to actually assess that risk, so we can make the judgment to go forward. We will then continue to drill. We'll start the engineering financial studies in Q4 of this year. We'll do a resource upgrade in Q1 of next year on Cabaçal. And we hope to have our first resource statement on St. Helena in Q1 of next year as well.
Okay.
We're not a one-trick pony, guys. This is a belt-scale asset. And we're identifying, essentially confirmed today, that Cabaçal is going to be a standalone producing asset. We're going to do all the cautionary language of feasibility studies, final engineering, permitting. There's nothing holding us back now, in my view.
Okay.
Trade, metallurgy, product, energy.
Okay, so a lot of things coming up that we need to look at. There's one thing I want to talk about, and you sort of mentioned that at the beginning, which is the Espino IOCG project, right? Because that's an exploration play, and IOCG, if you find them, huge. It answers my question around scale. How do you demonstrate scale? But how do you go about targeting and finding projects like this?
Every major in the world wants to find IOCGs. And you're absolutely correct, it is exploration. So what you do in that case for a junior company is you keep your capital expenditure down. It's costing us, I think, some 5,000 to 6,000 Canadian dollars a month to do the gravity survey. We already knew that the geochemistry, we did a lot of geochemistry. We had actually one group come in and look at this project. And we know that the geochemistry, the geology, the geological age is an exact replication of what you find in the Gawler Craton in South Australia, where you've got things like Carrapateena, Olympic Dam, and so forth. So we already knew that we had the right geochemistry, right geological age. But every single IOCG project has a significant gravity anomaly. And the biggest deposit, I think it's Lobo in Brazil. That's an IOCG, the biggest one in Brazil. Sorry, in Australia is Olympic Dam, of course. We've got several of them. They're not that well known in Canada, but Chile, Brazil, everywhere else they are. So we actually bought for Cabaçal a gravity meter. We invested our shareholders' funds in state-of-the-art geophysical equipment because that's actually long-term the cheapest way to do it in Brazil. So we started a gravity survey, and it's either there or it's not there. So we did a survey. First, we did a regional survey on 2 kilometre squares. Because if it's big, it's there. It's either there or it's not. If you're not there to develop something small, it's got to be.
But what are you looking for? What are the telltale signs? What are the signatures for these things?
Oh, we already had the signatures. We had the right geochemistry.
Right.
We had the right host rock, which is a brecciate hematite. We had already identified that in the drilling. We had coperiferous veining all over the place, and we had manganese. And manganese is actually associated with the later stage episode of IOCG emplacement. So effectively, for the previous 10, 12 years in Espegon, they were mining the soil anomaly of an IOCG complex. So we went through and we did that gravity survey. And the magnetic anomaly that we achieved was up to 15 milligal. And the biggest the numbers were presented to us were presented by our consultants out of Perth, and the biggest they've seen was 17 for Olympic Dam. Where the well was 6, and we came in at 15, and this was on a regional scale. So now what we're going to do is continue to infill the prospective area. We bring it down to say 200 by 200 metre squares, and we then produce a drill target.
So you continue to do that scaling down with the gravity survey equipment. So it's just honing it down, narrowing it down. So, okay, so 250 meter blocks, and then what? In terms of the drill bit, what do you? How do you get a little bit more precise? Because it's a big area. You're sitting on a big land package. Can be expensive.
Oh, that's correct. But we've also got an aeromagnetic survey. That was done in this project in 2016. And what we then look at is the coincidence of where we get the conductors, the magnetic anomalies associated with the gravity anomalies for our gravity meter, and we just hone in on that. That's what you do. And then we'll do a regional soil survey over the area to find prospective geochemistry. And then you've got to send in the drill and start targeting these things. If we can find another Oak Dam or another Olympic Dam, they're BHP discoveries. 18 months ago, if somebody had come to me and said, look, do you want to do a project level JV on Espegon? I would have done it. Yeah, not a problem. No, we won't. Because the cost to advance the project is very minimal, but the risk reward for our shareholders is absolutely fantastic. I cannot stress that. We have got the perfect small cap scenario. We have got absolute certainty on resource development, project development, and production with Cabaçal. You can see that.
Right.
We know that's happening. But at the same time, we've got the giant in the room, which is Espegon.
Right, exactly. Well, that's the bit my beady eyes are looking to, and I just wondered, with the cash that you've got available, I get it was like 9.3 back end of March. You'll be burning that. I appreciate you looking after the bucks, but you'll be burning that down. Mm-hmm. Is how much of a chance are you willing to take on Espegon?
We've got another 6 to 9 months of infilling the gravity survey.
Okay.
At marginal costs, so it's not material to the balance sheet. It is generating a lot of interest, but again, no equity, no interest, boys. We're not going to do a project JV on that unless it's at a ridiculously stupid valuation. We see, let's put it into context, the world's copper deposits. Cabaçal is a fantastic, and we think we've got real equity growth, massive equity growth in that project alone. IOCG deposits like Carapatina, Prominent Hill, Olympic Dam, they make Cabaçal sense in the dollar valuation. We've really got the opportunity for our shareholders to participate and grow along with us on these projects. It's certainty with Cabaçal. That's guaranteed. I've been demonstrating that for some months now, some years almost. But with our Espigón project, that just gives us the ability to create something giant scale, and the effect on the value of our equities is going to be quite significant, because in a timing scenario where it always falls over for a junior company is they can't afford to drill out a porphyry, they can't afford to drill out an IOCG. But in our time frame, we could go into a scenario where we go into production, we pay off our capex very quickly, and we use that cash flow to develop an IOCG. And that is a fantastic scenario for any equity management that you want to look at.
Okay, look, the other thing is, look, in a market like this, the wind blows, trees fall off, and new shoots of growth appear. How do you stand out compared to your peers, or any other comparison you want to make? Because will you kind of survive this market downturn? Why should people be looking at your story versus any other story in the kind of copper gold space at the moment? Because it's busy out there. There's a lot of people shouting for attention.
Absolutely. I won't say we have a peer. We are the peer. We are the one being compared to. We don't compare ourselves to anyone anymore, because we've already gone past them by a scale. With our equities, our shareholding, you get the exposure to a predefined resource that we've now expanded. You've got exposure to pre-known metallurgy that we've now confirmed, and in a power jurisdiction that is the lowest you'll see in the world. We don't have that, the petro or the carbon affected inflation for mining projects. That doesn't exist to us. We come straight off a clean energy grid, stable frequency of hydroelectricity, so all the people who are conscious of their ECG or their carbon governance, this fits their criteria. And what we're looking at is not a 10 or a 20 million tonne resource. We're looking at something much larger than that. So we've got scalability. And what really should attract them to this is this is just one of a suite of prospects. We didn't actually touch on it, Matty, but we had a precious metal discovery 2 kilometres from Cabaçal 3 weeks ago. Unbelievable. 2 kilometres to the south of Cabaçal, we hit a copper-silver precious metal system. I mean, I've got no idea how that happens geologically. It's probably related to the late stage gold overprint.
No, but I mean, your grades are good, and obviously with some of these byproducts, it does obviously, it helps a lot. But ultimately, you're going to need to move that historic resource from 21.7 million tons to something meaningful. I mean, what just in terms of your mind, I want to understand how you rank these things. What does a medium-sized project look like? What's a large project look like? What's a starter project look like?
A 20 million tonne VMS deposit is already quite large. Now, I'm sort of targeting north of 40 million tonnes just for one of them. Some of the belts, the bigger belts, have had cumulative production of 100 million tonnes. There's no rhyme or reason why this Cabaçal belt does not develop and become the largest VMS belt that's in production. We don't have any NGO risk. We will become a mine. We're not stuck in the Amazon jungle. We're not in an area of sensitivity. I mean, we don't have access problems. We don't have acid drainage problems. It's a modern mining industry is just a net creation of wealth and of dividends, and actually the largest dividend of course is paid for the local community in respect to jobs and so forth. But that's what we're presenting with our equities. And this is one of the, the market's come off. We've been, of course, shuffled down with the market. But our liquidity is still very good, but we're not seeing large amounts of selling. It's bites and pieces, 100,000 shares here and there. But that's when you've got 160 million shares outstanding. There was some sentiment in the market about the warrants. I mean, 80% of the warrants got converted. Start of the year, there was never any overhang, but there was just perception. So we're a really good capital structure. The money is being allocated correctly. We've gone out and done the network to confirm to everyone that yes, this is now the industry leader in metallurgy. And there's companies out there that are really good guys, great companies, old projects, drilled meters, own their projects longer than we have. They still haven't done their met study, because a lot of them will just fall over when they announce it. They say, oh, it's really good, but we need to do this, or we've got to grind it down to 20 microns and it's still going to have this deleterious penalty, but we'll be able to blend it with this other part. Guys, this is a production asset we're developing. We've got the metallurgy, we've got the grade, we've got the location, we've got the power. You can't get better than that.